Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Rose Sullivan, and I am your professor for human behavior in the social environment, the first class, the first section, I should say, otherwise known as HBSE 1. Um, I teach three sections of HBSE 1. Two of those three sections will be brick and click classes, or otherwise known as hybrid classes. Those classes will meet one day in class, in person, and 50% of the coursework will then shift to being online. So for those of you who are in the brick and click or the hybrid class, welcome. We will see each other, I believe, on Mondays. And after that, your work will be self-directed online. One section of HBSE 1 will be fully online. And I understand that there's a class of folks, it sounds like it's a relatively small class of folks, who are taking this as a fully online class. We will not meet in person, obviously, in that setting. So I welcome you also, and I invite you to come to my office here in Maud Hall and introduce yourselves or hang out. It would be nice to see everybody in person sooner or later, but I understand that for some of you that's not the setup of the class. So this is a little kind of welcome and a quick outline of the things that we're going to do and stuff that you want to be aware of. And let me kind of go into my introduction. So this is me. Um, in this picture, I believe, I am in Ireland, and I am sitting on a bridge on the edge of town where my father's side of the family comes from. I have a different ethnic identity for my mother's side of the family, but at least this was my trip to Ireland to try to understand more about the Irish side of my identity. That picture, actually, my trip was several years ago now, but I think I still actually do look like this for the most part. Um, if you see me in class, you can give me your opinion about whether or not this is really actually an accurate picture, but I think it's pretty good. Um, so I thought I would take a few slides here to introduce myself and then invite you to do the same and then talk about the syllabus. So one of the things I think about when I introduce myself is uh, what's important to me. And I would say that the first thing that comes to mind when somebody asks me what is important to me is my family, my three children. And so this picture right here are my twin boys. And I think looking at that picture, they might have been a day or two old. We're still in the hospital. That's what you can see behind me. And so one of my boys is named Rob, and one of my boys is named Gabe. And they just turned 8 years old. So this was obviously kind of a while ago. But it was quite the experience having twin boys. It still is, frankly, but definitely the infancy period with twins was, I'm sure I'll tell you stories as the class progresses, especially when we get to talk about the family life cycle and the introduction of children into the life cycle. But so these are my twin boys right after they're born. And then not very long later, I had my daughter, Alana, who in this picture, she's about 3 months old. And so those are my three kids. And here they are, a more recent picture of the three of them. They are really interesting people, I have to say. And they are all extremely different from each other. Yeah, they are obviously all related, but they are very different. So, my quick introduction also would talk about my kids and my time here at Westfield. I've been teaching at Westfield now for 12 years, and from the very beginning, taught HBSE 1, and the class has certainly evolved over the years, and I'm really excited to think about the new ways that we're going to talk about human behavior in the social environment for this year. So much has happened in the world, and all of those events shape who we are and shape our social environment, which then in turn shapes us. So I'm really excited to be teaching this class. And now, I've given you a very brief introduction about myself, but I hope that you will tell me and the rest of the class about you. One of the things that you'll see in this week's folder for the class is a discussion board where you can introduce yourselves and talk about things that are important to you, talk about uh, what you want to do in social work, talk about qualities of yourself that you think are important, talk about pieces of your life that you'd like to share. And if you possibly could, if you could upload a picture or maybe even a short video of yourself, that would be great. Um, if that feels too difficult right now or you're too uncertain about the technology, don't worry about it. But if you could do it, or if you could at least try an experiment where you do it, that would be awesome. We might get more technological as the class goes on, but this For some people, it might be very easy, and for some people, it might be kind of a challenge. But if you could try it out, I would really appreciate getting to see you and maybe having a short video of you. So now, kind of down to business. Probably the most important business to talk about is the syllabus for the beginning. That kind of starts us, that gets us going. Everything you need to know is in the syllabus. There's tons of information in the syllabus. So I would really encourage you to spend some time really reading the syllabus. So one of the first things you see on the syllabus is the professor's identity and the office hours. You'll see that on there for me, Rose Sullivan, and my office hours are, I think they are officially on Monday and Tuesday, although I have to say I'm very flexible to meet with people other times. All you need to do is email me and we can set something up to meet if none of the office hours that I have listed works for you. That brings me to kind of contact information, and my phone number is on the syllabus, of course. But I probably would get your message much faster if you emailed me at the Westfield email account. So just bear that in mind. If you want to reach me, probably better to email me. So one of the things that people want to know, of course, is what text we're using. And the text that we are using is written by Elizabeth Hutchinson. It's titled Essentials of Human Behavior, Integrating Person, Environment, and the Life Course. We will use this text both this semester and next semester. So it's actually very important that you get the text. So much of our midterm and our final will be based on the text, in addition to class exercises and class discussions that we'll do for both semesters, this one and next one. The text is available at the Westfield bookstore. It's available online. It probably is available used. It's probably available as a Kindle version. I'm sure there's lots of ways to access the text. But I would just say that it's very important that you have the text so that you can participate and be ready for the midterm and the final. So general expectations. General expectations. Well, that's a little bit different depending on what class you're in, but there are some overall expectations. So one of the things to know about this class is that it essentially runs from Monday to Monday. So every week I will open a class folder, and if you are in the hybrid version of the class or the brick and click version, meaning that I will see you at least once a week, there will be instructions for the online part of the class and instructions for the in-person part of the class. If you are somebody who is just taking the online version, obviously that will be different. But probably the big thing to know about the work is that it will go from essentially Monday to Monday. Any assignment or any project or any activities will be due online, and the Dropbox or the place where you put your assignment will be open until 11:59 on Sunday night. And then that deadline will, after that deadline, the Dropbox or the assignment will close, and the new stuff will open at midnight on Monday. So essentially 11:59 Sunday to 12 a.m. Monday, that's the turnover. That essentially means that the class runs from Monday to Monday. So if you are doing the hybrid version of the class where we meet once a week in person, that's great. That's going to be on Mondays. But then you have the entire rest of the week to do the other half of the class. And so you can do that really anytime. You can do that on the weekend, you can do that in the evenings, you could do it during the day, you can do it anytime, but you must have it done by Sunday at 11:59. And obviously, if you're doing the fully online version of this class, the same is true for you. You can do the work anytime you're available to do it, but everything that is due will be due at 11:59. So that kind of leads perhaps to a discussion about the assignments. There are essentially three major assignments in the course. One of the assignments is the midterm, one of the assignments is the final, and the dates are on the syllabus as to when those things are happening. And then a third major assignment is a major paper, a 10 to 12 page paper, where you identify and discuss your membership in a social, cultural, or ethnic group or groups. And so that, we will talk much more about this paper. It's obviously a major assignment. I will put up examples of past papers that students have done to try to help you understand the paper. But the paper essentially has three parts, and you see that in the syllabus. The first part is really like an autobiography. It's that part of the paper is where you, perhaps maybe even for the first time, really think about a social, ethnic, or racial group that you belong to, and the values and the beliefs and the norms and the instructions about the way you see the world that comes from being a part of that group. And then discuss it. And there's lots of prompts in the syllabus to give you examples of things that you could talk about. So even in this very, very short introduction that I did for this PowerPoint, I've already kind of made it clear that I belong to at least two, and obviously many more, social, ethnic, or cultural groups. One of them would be Irish American, and maybe more specifically Irish Catholic. And so if I were to write that paper, I would probably include that in the discussion of how being a part of that ethnic group has shaped my worldview and my values and my beliefs. And the other one would be that I identify very strongly as a parent, and that is a social group, and that I have changed, I think, really significantly since becoming a parent, and how I see the world and my values and my beliefs. So if I were writing this paper, I would also probably include that. So you're going to do that as we go through the semester, and we ask you to think about some of those things, some of those ways that you came into the world and came to see the world as you see the world. uh, we all come from social cultural backgrounds that shape us and that make us who we are. And it's important to really understand ourselves, because in social work, one of the things that's absolutely a given is that you will work with people who are very, very different than you. People who grow up in totally different social, cultural, ethnic, racial groups, and that their experiences growing up in those groups will shape them. And sometimes when you and your clients get together, everything will kind of match, and it will be very easy, and it will be a very uh, nice experience probably to work with a client that lines up with you really well. But 99% of social work is working across difference and working with somebody very, very different than you. And so the potential for cultural conflicts, for miscommunication, for hard feelings to build on one or both sides, all of that kind of stems from who we are and how we got that way. And so this paper is asking you to think about that and to write about that. Part two of the paper asks you to think about or predict or imagine how you, given who you are and all the things that you talked about in your autobiography part, might conflict with somebody very different than you. And it asks you to think about that, write about that, critique that. And one of the things you'll see in the syllabus is that it is not an acceptable answer to say, oh, it won't. No, no, I won't have any difficulty working with anybody different than me. Because ultimately, frankly, that's just not true. And it's not true for social workers who are new in the field, and it's not true for social workers who have been in the field for decades. We all will struggle with people. We all will struggle to communicate and to make a relationship and to understand people. And obviously, one of the things that is at the root of some of that difficulty is the clashing experience of who you are as a social worker versus who somebody else is, because you're probably very different. The third part of that paper really deals with the fact that at some point the paper kind of turns into more of a research paper, where you are going to be expected to have at least 5 academic citations to support the things that you write about. And again, I know that this is probably a lot to talk about now. We'll talk about it much more in class, but or we'll talk about it much more either online or in our physical classes together. It's okay if you have questions right now, you can email me. But essentially, I just wanted to give you the quick summary of that paper, as it's a major part of the paper. So another thing to think about in terms of assignments is the online work. If you are in the hybrid class, obviously half of your class is in person, half of your class is online. You really want to look at the attendance policy for the class, both for in-person classes and in online classes, and the same is true obviously if you're taking a fully online class. Essentially, if you miss 2 weeks of work, either 2 weeks of an in-person class or 2 weeks of an online class, I reserve the right to fail you for the class. we take attendance very, very seriously. These are very important classes. You're going to be in internships next year, and we really need to know as professors that we're sending you into the field with a good knowledge base so that your practice will be ethical and appropriate. And so one of the ways that we try to achieve that is by having a very strict attendance policy. So please, please look through the syllabus and please understand the attendance policy. And please let me know if there's anything unclear about that. If you are going to miss classes, or if something is up where you might miss the online portion of the class, please keep me in the loop about what's going on. If you have a legitimate medical excuse, for example, I don't want you to be penalized, but I need to know about it and I need to see documentation about it. So please just let me know what you need to be successful in the class, and I will try my best to work with you on that. And that obviously involves communication, either in person, in class, coming to office hours, keeping me in the loop via email. Communication is a really, really big part of doing well in really all classes, but especially in your social work classes. And so the last thing I thought I would offer you before I close this kind of welcome presentation has to do with something that I certainly am very accustomed to. Perhaps other people would join me in being accustomed to this. The issue of procrastination. I have a feeling I'm not alone in my identity as a procrastinator, but something I really want you to know is that it can get you into big trouble with online classes. The online portion of the class is time consuming, and it's not something that you can click in and out of quickly. And so when I see students getting in trouble in classes, it's oftentimes time management or procrastination. And so I would just say that to you as a warning to please think about your time management skills. Think about keeping up with the work, both online and in class. Many people are very capable of doing the work, but they get tripped up with time constraints and they don't get things done, and deadlines close and zeros get entered in for grades, and before you know it, there's big problems. So I would just offer that to you now. Please don't procrastinate, and please please know that online courses are every bit as rigorous and every bit as time consuming as in-person classes. So with that, I will say goodbye to you for now, and I will look forward to some of you seeing you in our first class in person next week, and for some of you getting to know you more online. And I think we're going to have a great class. I think a lot of information is going to come your way, and I feel very confident that all of you will do really, really well. So we'll talk soon.